Hey MCE crew, Tyrone here. We're going to get into the mileage tax. That's in the news these days. And you know, when we get into a subject here on Money Changes Everything, we do not just sit here and complain about it. What we do is we examine the issue and we figure out how we can come out of the other side of that issue better off financially. So we're going to do that today with the mileage tax. Now, the mileage tax is a proposal by Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. He has said that he thinks that such a tax would help the federal government pay for federal road, bridge infrastructure over time. This is not new. The Democrats in particular have talked about a mileage tax for many years. Now, what you need to understand, because again, you know, this is why I don't watch the news, because they sensationalize and inflame. They don't inform. Right now, you are paying a mileage tax of sorts. And the reason that you pay that, or the method through which you pay that, is in the form of the gasoline tax. The federal gasoline tax is about 18.4 cents per gallon. So out of whatever it costs you per gallon to fill up, 18.4 cents of each gallon is going to the federal gas tax, not in your tank, to the federal government. And then your state also levies a gas tax as well. Now, you'll have to check with your particular state to figure out how much your state gas tax is. But so right now, if you put gasoline into your gas tank, you are paying an excise tax of 18.4% federally. So in effect, you are being taxed on your mileage because you can't traverse any miles without gasoline. Now, the federal government wants to get ahead of something that's going on that we all know about, and that is the development of the electric car industry. We're starting to see more and more electric cars on the road. I see a lot of Teslas on the road. Every time I go out, I see more and more Teslas. And then today I saw some Chevrolet brand electric car. All right, so you can't make money from a gasoline tax if you don't have cars on the road that are using gasoline. And remember, General Motors has said that they're going to stop manufacturing the internal combustion engine driven vehicle as of 2035. All right. So the government sees this coming. They see an environment wherein the gas tax is not going to be as lucrative as it is right now. So that is why you are hearing this idea floated. Now, I used to be a lobbyist. And in DC, by the way, is Hollywood for ugly people. That is why I left. DC has this thing where they float what are called trial balloons. The federal government, especially the executive branch, the president's administration, no matter who the president is, they do this a lot. They throw up an idea, get it out in the media, and then they do polling on that idea to see what the acceptance level is in society. Now, I'm sure that's what Buttigieg was doing here. There's not a lot of acceptance about it because there's not a lot of education going on. I highly doubt that you're going to see people taxed for gasoline and mileage at the same time. But if you've got an internal combustion engine car, you go to the gas station and you fill up, you're paying the gas tax. If you've got a Tesla, then you would pay the mileage tax. That's how they're going to transition that in. And we don't even know if that's going to happen this year. Okay, it's probably a few years down the road. So we've dealt with the history of it. We've dealt with the why of it. Now let's talk about how you can best advantage yourself financially, whether it's a gas tax or a mileage tax. Right now, you can take a deduction if you are in business, if you own a business. Right now, you can deduct either your mileage or you can take a standard deduction on the expenses of your vehicle. Now, some caveats. You cannot exercise this on fleets. You've got to talk with your accountant your CPA, your tax preparer, you got to talk to them about your specific situation. I'm going to go over this at a high level, and then you will understand the concept enough so that you can talk to your tax professional, find out how you fit into this. All right, so right now you can take that deduction for the mileage, or again for the expenses related to the car. You cannot do both. And right now the mileage, let's check it just to be sure. 2021's mileage rate for businesses is 56 cents. Okay, the source for that is the Internal Revenue Code. 56 cents is actually down from 2020, which was 57.5 cents, which pretty much is understandable. They want to give you less of a deduction because remember, the federal government wants more revenue. And coming out of 2020, when we had the pandemic in its full bore, fewer people were out there driving. So you see that in 2020, the rate was 57.5 cents per mile. Now it's 56 cents. So 56 cents per mile, what does that mean? It simply means that you take the amount of miles driven for business, multiplied by the 0.56 cents for 2021, and then you have an amount that is equivalent to your mileage deduction. Now, when we're dealing with the IRS, we have to, we got to play fair. There are rules within the tax code that allow us, as business owners especially, to save money, to cut down on our tax burden. But we're going to have to be able to verify those expenses. And in this case, the mileage. So what you should do, you need to go out on the internet. There are plenty of apps. There are plenty of spreadsheets. They're free, where you can actually track your mileage so that you are 100% accurate when your tax professional goes to fill these forms out. And keep in mind, you can take one or the other. You can't do mileage and the standard deduction. All right, let's talk about the standard or actual deduction. What does that look like? We've talked about mileage. On the standard or actual deduction, what you're doing is you're basically taking a deduction based on the wear and tear of the vehicle. So some expenses that you're able to deduct would include gas and oil, repairs and maintenance, depreciation, car repair tools, license fees, parking fees, registration fees, tires, insurance, even car washing, lease payments, and auto club dues. Those are some. But again, you have got to keep meticulous records associated with these deductions. You cannot play around with the IRS, okay? Just ask Wesley Snipes or Willie Nelson. You want to be precise and accurate and truthful. You don't want to try to get over. And you really don't need to. There are so many benefits in the tax code right now that you really don't need to try to get over. Now, let me say this at this juncture. Right now, taxes, the whole tax code is in flux. Joe Biden is out there, putting out some proposals of what he's going to do in terms of changing the tax code. So again, it is important you rely on the latest information that your CPA or tax preparer should have in order to keep you in compliance. Now, you might be asking at this point, so which deduction do I take? And as so often is the case, that depends. One way to look at it is by determining the actual expense of your vehicle. If you're driving one of these big SUVs, one of these expensive vehicles, and you're not driving a lot of miles, then it may actually behoove you to take the actual or standard deduction, okay? Now, if you're putting a lot of miles on your car, now there's some professions out there that put a lot of miles on their car. There are real estate agents. There are nurse practitioners. Certain nurse practitioners go from patient to patient. They're housed to the hospitals, medical centers. They're driving around a lot in their personal vehicles. If you are in that situation, then you've got to take a look at your mileage, and it's probably, you're putting a lot of miles on that car, then the mileage deduction is going to be what you want to take. And how do you figure that out? You just approximate and say, hey, okay, I think I'm driving this amount of miles per year. You can look at your maintenance records to figure it out, and then you multiply it by the 0.56 cents. And then you can compare that to what you actually spent in maintenance or those other deductions or those other items we just discussed. Compare and contrast. But again, in a general sense, if you're driving one of these big SUVs and you're not, or expensive cars, and you're not putting a lot of miles on it, then the actual or standard deduction probably will make more sense. You got to do the research on your own to figure out what is best for you. Now, here's a very important point. If you use the actual or standard deduction in the first year of ownership, then you are locked in to that method forever, for the life of that vehicle, okay? However, if you use the mileage deduction in the first year, then you have the ability to switch back and forth between the two. Now, why would you need to do that? Well, there may come a time where you want to do some extensive repairs to your vehicle in order to increase the lifespan of that vehicle. New transmission, new tires. When you sit down and you do the math, those expenses may come in above what you would have taken if you did the mileage deduction. So it's important that you initially go ahead, if you are interested in possibly switching back and forth, you've got to understand that you've got to use the mileage deduction rate that first time. That'll give you the ability to oscillate between the two if it makes financial sense for you in subsequent years. All right, another caveat, leased vehicles. If you have a leased vehicle and you use that mileage rate in the first year, then you are locked in to using the mileage rate for the life of the lease. Now, most leases out there, I'm no car dealer, but as I understand it, and in my research, I found that most leases have pretty good coverage on the maintenance side, all right, because there's a high likelihood that they're going to take that vehicle back. They want it to be well maintained. So it may not make sense for you ever to have to take that actual or standard deduction on a leased vehicle. But just remember, and I can't think of any reason why in the first year of a lease, you would need to take the deductions on repairs. So you're pretty much locked into the mileage deduction for a leased vehicle. Okay, let's go over the pros and cons of each, the mileage versus the standard or actual deduction. When it comes to mileage, when it comes to the mileage deduction, it's an easy way to get the deduction for the business use of a vehicle. Again, this is not something that you can take just as a W-2 employee. Also, it's pretty flexible if you need to switch between the methods if you use mileage in the first year. Now, tracking this whole thing is much simpler than if you use the actual or standard deduction. All you got to do is basically keep a mileage log, and you can get those out there on the internet for free or at the App Store. They're widely available. Now, one of the cons is you may be able to get a larger deduction with the actual expense method, but we've talked about that, and you should know how that works for right now. When it comes to the actual expense method, it's potentially, like we said, a larger deduction, especially if you have a more expensive vehicle and drive fewer miles. And as far as the cons, this does require pretty detailed record keeping. Again, we want to play it straight with the IRS because they've got a lot of power to make your life miserable if you don't. Another con of the actual deduction is you're going to lose the flexibility of going between standard and mileage if you use this standard deduction in the first year of the vehicle being in service to your business. Okay, I hope that was helpful. If they do a mileage tax, 9 times out of 10, they're going to leave this be. You're already being charged for the miles you travel ostensibly due to the fact that you're paying a gasoline tax now. If you own a business, this can help offset that. Now, in parting, what I want to say is, if you have any intention, if you're out there working a 9 to 5 right now and you have entrepreneurial leanings, or you have a business and you're looking to maybe you had a restaurant, and that was hit hard over the past year, and maybe you're looking for a change. Listen, the two businesses that my family has operated for well over almost 2 decades now, real estate and financial services, those are businesses that are thriving, and those are businesses that have a future. Okay. And with regard to the financial services business, a lot of people are retiring out of that business. And there's a need for qualified professionals to come into that sector. So if you have any desire or any interest at all in starting a very lucrative business in financial services or real estate because they're like chocolate and peanut butter, I want you to contact us. There's some contact information in the description below. You need to just go to our website and you'll see the contact box. All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon.